So we have what is called a treatment gap. And the problem is it doesn't exist in a vacuum. If you have a lot of people who have mental health challenges, well, that's going to lead to extremism. That's going to lead to, other issues that somehow come back to the rich countries. It isn't just a case of those people over there. And the problem is that we don't have evidence-based solutions. And so, and some of the solutions, it's like they take this US English language model and they just throw it into some developing country and say, okay, use this. Here's an app. They don't have internet connection. They don't speak English. And so what I am thinking about and what I'm going to do is set up a project. It's for scalable mental health multimedia tools for low resource and conflict areas.
You sent me something called Impact Tech Project. Is that what you're talking about now?
That's it. That's it. See, part of it, Impact Tech, we can do virtual learning modules. I'm a virtual learning expert, but for people who can't read or who don't have internet, they're going to need other kinds of materials. And so what it is a research project to go in and try to figure out what kinds of materials can be created for people in low resource or conflict areas, and how can we scale it? So it's called Mespero. This is one of the projects that I've set up.
ESPERO? Is that right?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's MESPERO.com, and it's accessible via my website. And this is not a money maker. This is a volunteer thing, but I believe that it's if we don't deal with stuff like this, it's going to come back and get us at some point. So
I think it really maps onto what's happened in the U.S. This big divide.
Yeah.
What you've been saying really relates, in this particular microcosm.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can say just in one last thing in closing, I do a lot of consulting with people in the government over here. And what they have been preparing for since August is this, I'll tell you. So first comes the health crisis. Then comes the financial crisis, and that was Q4 last year. What now is going to be coming is the economic crisis. And what that means is businesses going bankrupt, the government funding running out. And then what comes up after that is the social crisis. And the social crisis is more and more, uprisings in dealing with populations that are, for example, what we saw at the Capitol, but just on a much broader level. And my thing is these things are predictable and these things are preventable. But it means that we, again, need to look at the broader context.
Yeah. So how do you get access to people in government? I'm interested in that. It sounds like how have you got that credibility to do that?
Well, one of the things also that I do is I'm an intercultural consultant. So if a trade delegation goes to China or something like that, I can tell them how to handle that culture. You know what I mean? And so with that background, and also I have an organizational development background, then people just ask for my, consultation on different things. Also too, I'm kind of a tech person, and what I find interesting on this whole different level, but it's totally connected to mental health, is the radical changes going on in HR right now. And I'm sure.
What are those?
Oh man, it's a huge paradigm shift.
And HR,
human
resources, the place in business where they look at the hiring and the firing and the qualifications that people need. right?
That's exactly right. But you see, that whole area is going to also be even bigger during this economic issue coming up, as people are losing their jobs and the companies want to retain certain people. And so we're coming up to a very interesting time now. But what I'm finding is disturbing for me on an HR level is the extent to which it's becoming tech. And these are maybe not the corner shop, but this is multinational companies. There's basically three main things. One is augmented analytics, using artificial intelligence to do things like prioritization. A big area right now is called sensing technology. And that is, how do you aggregate sentiment data of your workers to try to understand what's the general mood, you know?
Sentiment, yes.
Yeah. And so the extent to which hiring now is controlled by artificial intelligence
Yeah.
is, and so we are entering on so many levels of mental health. We're entering new territory. And I firmly believe that we have to really keep our eyes open and also look at the broader context. How do all of these pieces fit together?
Yes, yes, indeed. So how do you, wow, you got your fingers in so many different pots or marionette strings, or I don't know what the right metaphor is. What are you, uh, one is I'm amazed by your ability to do all of that. Two is what are you doing to keep your own psychological balance? I mean, everything that you're laying out could lead to enormous despair.
Hmm. Hmm.
So how do you keep
Well,
that at
that's
bay?
that's a good question, and thank you so much for that. I think that what what I'm finding, what I firmly believe, David, is this: we have come to an incredibly important crossroads in our society. And I firmly, but you had referred to before of two different sides, or different versions. I think that people like you, and I love the fact that you're doing exactly what you're doing, communicating and having, spreading ideas. People like me, I do this in my own way. But I believe that if there were ever a time that we need to be vocal and organized and busy, it's really going to be 2021,
Mhm.
because now is going to be really major decisive times in our societies, literally globally. And so for me, I have one thing. This project, Maspero, is actually connected to a friend of mine's project. His name is Les Sim, and he set up something called the International Forum for Understanding, based out of Cambridge. And what he's doing is a step further. He's taking not only mental health, he's also connecting things to nuclear weapons and just looking at the whole ball of wax. And
Yeah,
this
yeah.
project will be just one. So, again, for me, to answer your question, understanding the broader context, and when you see how the pieces fit together, that's inspiring, and it's also motivating, because once now I realize that there are these people who are sitting, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people sitting there with mental health challenges, getting zero support, embedded in stigmatization. And we can do just a little bit of stuff to help them. Man, let's do it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is the motivation.
Yeah, so I'm hearing your answer to how do you keep despair at bay is being active, is
That's right.
not not being overwhelmed by it, but rather saying, okay, I'm going to move ahead and do what I can do.
I think that's all any of us can do.